Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
This is the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, you know who it is, Kayvon Izami, as always. Thank you everyone for tuning in on this lovely day. Wherever you are, however you're listening, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and we hope you enjoy the show, also known as The Game, today. We've got an awesome show in store. We break it down in four quarters. You guys know how we do it. We like to keep it football and football only because it's the GSMC Football Podcast. I'm in a great mood. I really am. I'm a happy guy today. My Carolina Hurricanes are moving on to round one of the playoffs after a sweep. Bring out them broomsticks, baby. Bring out them broomsticks, baby. A sweep against against the New York Rangers. We've got lots of games on, a great Saturday slate of hockey, baseball, basketball. Football is around the corner. The NFL is going full steam ahead, and we're on board, baby. We're on board. You know, we're tired of the virus talk. We're tired of the player opting out talk. You know, college football, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Look, one thing we know is the NFL football season is going to happen. Now, is it going to finish? I don't know. Is it going to get halfway through? I don't know. Is it going to be a good season where everyone stays healthy and you know, it's a fair competition each game? I highly doubt it. There's going to be a lot of bumps and turns for these teams to go through. And as a fan, I would prepare yourself for that. I would prepare yourself to understand that there might be some weeks when you're not going to be putting out a full roster, so you can, you know, guard your emotions a little bit. I know I'm personally working on that myself because we all know how some of us get, and that is, I'm talking about myself here during football season. You get pumped up, you get excited, you get happy, but then when your team loses, you get depressed. It happens. And it's going to be, you know, and really we have to take things in a positive way. We do. And I know that I've sounded negative on this show many times, but the reason I was doing that is not on purpose. I just want everyone to be aware of the facts. I want everyone to be aware of the questions. I want everyone to understand what is going on and what's going to happen. I just want people to be safe and healthy, but of course I want football. And look, I trust the NFL. I believe in the NFL. I think they're going to do their best. Nothing is perfect. Nothing is perfect. Look, I've been on record many times of really criticizing baseball's commissioner, Rob Manfred. I really have. But he's actually done a decent job. Look, he's done a terrible job when it comes to putting this season together and the optics around the Astros cheating situation. All of that stuff has been awful. He's done a lot of terrible things and messed up a lot of stuff. But really, all in all, when you look at what's going on in baseball, and the reason why we keep bringing up baseball is because it's parallel. It correlates with the NFL because of the traveling. There's no bubble. Manfred has done a good job. It's really been only one team that has had that outbreak. And since that has happened, he tightened up. He adapted like we always talk about, and he tightened up. Now, other players and other teams have gotten, but this is a virus, guys, that we don't know how it works. We don't know anything really about it other than it's super contagious. And when you're on a team with a bunch of athletes that are sweating and you don't know exactly who they've been around, people are going to get infected. It just comes down to, how does the league go about testing? How does the league go about quarantining? And how does each and every team go about it? We're going to have teams that are dumb. We're going to have teams that don't take this as serious. We're going to have players that don't take this as serious. And unfortunately, for the rest of the players on that team, it's going to cost them. Because if you have one player that acts like a knucklehead, one coach that acts like a knucklehead, one person in the front office that acts like a knucklehead, that whole team could severely be impacted by it. It's just going to come back down to using your head, being smart, understanding the situation, and doing every possible thing you can to eliminate as much risk as possible. You go straight home. You don't go and get gas. You don't go and go inside the gas station when you get gas. You don't go and get food. You order food. You let them drop it off on your front door, then you go out and grab it. You wash your hands. You wear a mask. You make sure that your family doesn't go anywhere, has anyone over when you're traveling. That's a big part of this too. You've got to let your family know, hey, this is all of us. This is a team thing. If we want to finish this season, if we want to get a full paycheck, if we want to try and win a championship, everyone has to buy in. And it's going to be super fascinating. And now that's going to be a storyline all season. It's going to be super fascinating watching which teams buy in. Which teams are loose about this? Which coaches are strict? Which coaches are going to lay down fines? Is the NFL going to lay down fines if they hear about players going to risky situations? They need to. That's how these things work, and that's how this has to happen if we want a good football season. And the NFL's going full steam ahead, baby. We're going to have it. And there is one thing that we all should know. Everyone, as long as they follow the rules, should go into week 1 healthy. Because there's no preseason games, so we're not going to have any tackling. We're not going to have any full contact before week 1. So this gives everyone time to quarantine their players that have COVID, let those players rest, let those players get healthy, and come week 1, everybody should be set and ready to go. Then after that is when the questions start to happen. So at least we know we're going to get 1 full week of some football, baby. And it's going to be interesting. I know some states are having fans in there. Other states have completely denied no fans allowed, but they're going to be flexible as the season goes on. If the virus gets better, all of that stuff is going to be really interesting. And it's just going to be an entire season of, who can adapt the best. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk all football, baby. We're going to talk storylines about impacting on the field, okay? Like I said, I wanted to just dive into that quick opening about how this season's going to go. And now from here on out, it's all about the football, baby. It's all about what's going to happen on the field. And we've got some fun segments for you. We really do. So what we're going to do is, to start the first quarter, we're going to look at this Cam Newton situation. All right. There were some recent comments made by an old teammate of Cam Newton's, and it's bringing up another conversation that I thought we were already done with. So I want to bring light to that, and I want to give my opinions on that. We're then going to transfer to Antonio Brown. That Antonio Brown conversation will either take place at the end of this first quarter or the beginning of the second quarter. And I know for weeks now I've been saying we're going to talk about him, and we're going to finally do it today. I promise you that. Look, I said I don't really care to talk about it, but it's a situation that is now actually getting more intriguing to me as time has gone by, and I want to discuss that. And I've been telling you guys we're going to, so we'll definitely tackle that. As well as in the second quarter, we're going to talk about something really interesting here. I love this storyline. An NFL player has recently come out and said that He's going to break Michael Strahan's single-season sack record of 23. He said it, and he said it with confidence. He said, I'm going to break this record. Well, does the player really have some weight behind that? Do you think that he's going to break it? Do I think that he's going to break it? Who is this player, and is it a real possibility? We'll talk about that. And then we're also going to dive into some of the bounce-back players of the year, okay? Players that didn't have their best season last year. Are they going to be able to bounce back? Which players do we believe that didn't perform up to their best talents last year will bounce back full steam ahead this year and have a really good bounce back season? That will then take us into quarter number 3. We'll go into halftime with a big lead as always. And then coming out of halftime, you know what it is. Come on now. Kayvon's division tour. It lives on, baby. It lives on. And I'm sad, guys, because we're almost done with the Kayvon division tour. We are almost done. We only have 2 divisions left, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this segment as much as I have. But the AFC West today. We're going to break down the AFC West, and then to end the show, to give you guys the big shebang, the big fourth quarter, we're going to do something to tack on another dub in the win column. We're going to look at the best number 2 receivers in the NFL. Every Batman has a Robin, right? Not in the NFL, though. So which teams have the best Robin? The best number 2 receiver in the league? We're going to dive into that. So stay tuned. Now, let's get into this Cam Newton situation here, all right? So I don't know if you guys have seen these comments yet, but former defensive lineman Kyle Love, who was undrafted by the Patriots in 2010, he didn't go drafted. The Patriots signed him after the draft in 2010. He played a couple years with the Patriots. I think it was like 2010 to 2013. And then he went from there to Carolina, where he played the last 4 years from 2014 to 2019 with the Panthers. And you know who else was on that team as well, right? Cam Newton. Exactly. So Kyle Love has played in New England, and he's played in Carolina. And he's played in Carolina with Cam Newton. So Kyle Love recently sat down for an interview with Andrew Callahan of the Boston Herald. Really quick, doesn't that last name sound so Boston? Callahan? Like when I hear that, I immediately think Boston. I don't know if that's just me, but the Boston Harbor, Andrew Callahan, I don't know. That just came. Maybe that's just me, but that just immediately came to my head. But anyways, Kyle Love said in an interview with Andrew Callahan talking about the differences of playing in Carolina and New England. And Kyle said this, and I want to read you the quote. So I quote, being a professional in New England is different from being a professional in Carolina. It's a whole different ballgame, Love told Callahan. Bill wants things run a certain way, wants things practiced a certain way, and said a certain way in the classroom and in the media. New England is not for everybody. Every player does not fit there physically or mentally. Love goes on to say, my fear is, can Cam fit in their box? Because I want Cam to win. I want Cam to be successful. I want to see him win games and even a championship because I love that dude. I just hope he can do that within the guidelines of what Bill wants. Kyle Love finishes his thoughts by saying this. This is just my opinion, but I don't feel like Cam can take the pressure off coaches. Can take the pressure of coaches talking down about his play. If he had a bad game in Carolina, the coaching staff wouldn't say much to him because they may have felt he could be a little frail about it or maybe even pout. They never really corrected to the point Bill used to correct Tom. All right, so first of all, I want to just say this. I'm very, very leery of someone who says that they want a person to do well and they want a person to succeed and they want a person to win a championship, but they also criticize him at the same time. I don't know. Something is just weird about that to me. And you know what, Kyle Love, he might actually mean it. Like, for all I know, he really does want Cam to win these games. He really does want Cam to succeed in New England. But it also feels like he is trying to soften his blow a little bit. And you know, he's trying to soften his blow while criticizing Cam and make it seem like he's not trying to come off that harsh. That's just what it seems to me. I'm always a little bit weary whenever someone tries to do that. So that's the first thing. So I have another analogy for you guys here to start this off. Have any of you out there ever traveled to a place that you're unfamiliar with? And not necessarily the place, but the way things happen there it could be. It could be a new culture that you're not used to, a new transportation system, or just a different way of living. Like, for example, my dad was born in Iran. I think I've told you guys this before when I gave you guys my great Eminem story. He grew up there all the way until he graduated high school. Then he came to the United States, and he went to LSU for college, became an engineer, all that good stuff, and blah, 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 and he's been here ever since. The United States has been his home ever since. Well, I've been there a couple times to visit, but I've never actually lived there. But when I've been there to visit, I've noticed that they do things different there. Obviously, it's a whole different country, a whole new culture, all that stuff. Well, if one day I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to go live there. Not visit, I actually want to live there. Well, it wouldn't just be that simple, would it? I mean, I could do that, but I don't think it would go very well. I would first have to really understand what their culture is, study and learn their culture, the way they live life. I'm not saying I would have to change who I am as a person. No, not at all. I can be myself. But if I want to fit in, if I want to succeed there, well, then I need to be willing to learn how they live over there, how they go about their day-to-day life. I would need to learn Farsi, which is the language they speak. And yeah, it might be tough. It might be a big change. But if I want to fit in there and I want to make it work, then that's on me to adapt because I'm going into their place. I'm going into their country. This is exactly what is happening here with Cam Newton going to New England. Now look, I've already given you guys my thoughts on Cam and Belichick together. I told you that they both have something to prove. They're both on a mission, and that's a recipe for success. We've already gone through that. But this is a convo more specifically about Cam Newton. Because the comments his former teammate made about him being worried Cam can't adapt to Belichick's organizational style. I think this statement is ridiculous. And look, I'm not trying to pick on Kyle Love here, because many, many other people keep coming out and saying this too. But Kyle gets more attention because he actually played with Cam. Look, are there questions about Cam's attitude? Of course there are. And those questions are fair. But forgive me if I'm reaching here or if I'm missing something, but when has Cam given us any inclination or past history of him not willing to adapt or do anything he can to win? Do we forget that this is the Cam Newton that had to go from the University of Florida, big-time SEC school, one of the biggest. He was a backup behind Tim Tebow there, and then got in trouble for buying a stolen computer. That was a long time ago. That was back in 2008. But that is some serious adversity. So this is a 5-star player coming out of high school that has to bury his ego and leave a huge SEC school and go to a junior college for a year. What does he do in that 1 year at junior college? He balls out and he gets recruited to another massive SEC school in the University of Auburn. He gets to Auburn, and this time he has learned. This time he has adapted. This time he has grown up, and the first year there, he takes them all the way to the national championship game and wins Auburn a title against Oregon that year. He understands the moment. He understood that he screwed up his first shot at a big college, so he worked his way back up. He took the time to learn while he did it, and he seized his opportunity to the fullest the next time around. Cam understands the situation he is in, guys. You don't think he hears the rumor about how Belichick is, how Belichick coaches? He knows the situation. And Cam is smart. He's a rational person. Also, do we really believe that Belichick is the only one that coaches his players hard? All coaches do it. I mean, yeah, Belichick might be less forgiving or less friendly, and because of the success he has, he might be more intimidating. But let me turn this around and ask you a question, my great listeners. Who says Belichick won't adapt to Cam? I mean, we've seen Belichick do it one way and one way only for 20 years. But he has had the same QB for all those 20 years, so he didn't have to do it a different way. We haven't seen Belichick in a new situation. Maybe he won't treat Cam the way he treated Tom Brady. I mean, Belichick is a smart guy, and Belichick wants to win really bad. If Belichick feels that Cam can't take his aggressive style of calling people out, well, maybe he won't then do that to Cam. But I don't see that happening because I think Cam can take this kind of coaching just fine. I don't know if you guys and girls have heard this, but it's documented numerous times that Cam's father, Cecil Newton, used to be really hard on Cam. Like really hard. He used to coach him up. He raised him to handle this type of situation. Again, Cam knows what he's getting into with Bill Belichick. And he knows that he is about to go into a year where he's going to get the best coaching that he has ever had in his entire football career. And he is excited about that. He says it. He just had his first interview, guys, with the first time he's had a press conference with the Boston media, and he sounds excited. You know, he said, and I quote, "This whole process has been amazing. I'm looking forward to the challenge. I'm looking forward to learn about a new team, a new city. I love what is happening here. I'm ready for this challenge." Guys, this is a guy that's ready. And I'm tired of people coming at him saying he can't handle it. He's given us no past history that he can't handle hard coaching, that he can't handle changing because of a different environment. He's already gone through that when he was younger, much younger, talking about a kid in college. Now he's older, he's more grown up, and he's ready to compete, and he's ready to prove people wrong. This nonsense has to stop. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I'm your host, Kayvon. Appreciate everyone for listening today. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's time to discuss Antonio Brown. We've been dragging it out for a while, but new topics about the situation are coming up, and it's time to dive into it. So stick around right after this.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon. You know who it is. Coming into quarter number 2. 1 quarter down, 3 to go. Big lead as always. Because of you great listeners. Always producing some great ratings for this show. Awesome stuff here today. So what we just talked about, what we just dove into was the Cam Newton situation. You know, his teammate Kyle Love called him out. And I just don't think that's necessary. I really don't see the point of it. Maybe he's trying to get some clickbait. Maybe he's trying to get his name back out there. But, you know, I just don't see the point of this. Cam Newton is a big boy. All right, Cam Newton has a lot to play for. And also, one other thing, guys, we keep acting like Cam Newton got traded there, like he was forced to go to New England. He didn't have to sign with New England. And I get it, he didn't have a bunch of other suitors coming his way, but maybe once teams found out that he was going to sign for that little of money, I think he would have had a lot of other teams calling, at least a couple more. So he chose to go to New England. He did his homework before he went to New England. He understands what the situation is like because he knows what the situation is like because everybody that plays in the NFL, or even if you don't play in the NFL, if you just follow the NFL, you know what the situation is like. He's not going into this blind. And he's going to do just fine. The only thing that's going to hold this team back is that they don't have enough weapons on the offensive side of the ball, and also that they've had the most people opt out of the season because of the coronavirus. I think they ended up with 8 or 9. So maybe they don't have a great season because of lack of talent. I still have them winning the AFC East, and I'm going to hold on to that until I see otherwise, until I see them come out and really just don't play the football that we usually see the New England Patriots play. Well, then I'll walk that back. But right now, I'm holding on to that pick. If the season doesn't go well, it's not going to have anything to do with Cam Newton and Bill Belichick butting heads and causing drama, and that's all that sports media in Boston is going to talk about. That's not what it's going to be. If they don't do well, it's because there just isn't enough talent on that team. They already were short of talent. That's how Bill Belichick always does it. He wins games by coaching and Tom Brady. But now they're really short of talent because a lot of players opted out. So if they end up having a bad season, it will be because of that. But I would put money on the line that we do not see any type of beef between those two all season. Cam Newton is not someone that is just going to walk around and pout 24/7. He's there to win games. He's there to prove to the Panthers that they did him wrong. He's there to prove to the league that he is still the former MVP that we know. Now, stay tuned because in quarter number 4, 2 segments from now, we're going to give you guys the best Robins in the league. All the number 1 receivers out there. Do they have a Robin? No, they don't. But the ones that do, which ones are the best? Which ones are the best Robins? Which are the best number 2 receivers in the league that can hold their own? And I'm telling you guys, when I was doing my research, there are some good ones. There are some really good ones, and you guys are going to want to stay tuned and hear that. So, let's dive into Antonio Brown now, all right? Again, we've been telling you for numerous weeks now that we're going to do it, and whether it's because I end up just talking so much or we just have so much other things to talk about, we haven't really gotten around to it. But now I do want to talk about it. I've been teasing it. I've been saying we're going to do it, and I think it's a good topic to have today because we want to talk football. We want to talk about teams getting better, getting worse. We want to talk about what's going to happen on the field this coming season because we're having a season, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go. All right, so Antonio Brown, as of Friday last week, so not this Friday, but the past, I think that was, if I remember correctly, I want to say it was the 1st of August. It was August 1st. It was announced that the NFL has officially suspended Antonio Brown for 8 games. Now, this was a process that has been going on forever, and actually last week when Brown tweeted out he was retiring, you remember we did talk about this, that he said he was going to retire, and I said if I had to put my money on it, he's not going to retire. He's going to walk that back. He still wants to play. That's just who Antonio Brown is, and I knew that was correct because like 2 days later, Brown tweeted out to the NFL that they're purposely delaying his punishment so that teams can't sign him. Literally 2 days after he said he was going to retire. He tweeted a long thing to the NFL saying, let's make a decision. You guys are clearly not trying to get me signed, blah, 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 blah. And to his credit, the NFL has been taking a long, long time to figure out what they're going to do. So, the NFL decided to make the decision to suspend him for 8 regular season games in 2020. This now officially opens the door for a team to sign him. Look, I'm going to be honest with all you, and I've said this before, and this is going to sound harsh, but Antonio Brown annoys me, okay? Antonio Brown is someone that has so much talent, so much God-gifted talent. He's a beautiful player to watch when he's on the field. The way he runs his routes, the way he catches the ball, the way he runs after the catch. It's phenomenal. It's pure poetic football. It is. He's one of the best receivers to ever play. He has some of the best talent I've ever seen in a receiver. And he just throws it all away. Because he's self-centered. He's all about himself. He will tear a locker room up before you can even blink. It's just who he is. Somewhere along the way, he lost the person that he was. Somewhere along the way, he wasn't anymore that person that had to fight and crawl his way to get a spot on a college team. He wasn't a big recruit coming out of high school. Not many colleges wanted him. And then he had to get to the NFL and prove himself, where he did with the Steelers. And then once he finally proved himself and got paid, all things went off the rail from there. And look, he clearly has issues. So, I mean, this isn't something where I'm making fun of him with, because, like, he clearly has some serious mental issues, and that's sad. That's something that's serious and has to be dealt with. And I hope he gets fixed, and I hope that does get fixed, and I hope he can come back to the NFL and be the player that we all used to love to watch play. But, again, he will tear a locker room up before you can even blink. And that's something to worry about. So, now that he has gotten that 8-game suspension, though, now that officially teams know he is suspended for 8 games, this opens up the door for teams to sign him. Because before, teams weren't willing to sign him. One, because obviously everything we just went through, they're worried, they don't trust him. But then 2, they also didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, if they signed him, they didn't know how long he was going to be suspended. Was it going to be 8 games? Was it going to be a year? Was it going to be 2 years? Was it going to be 5 weeks? Like, they had no idea. So they could have just signed this guy and had him chilling in their locker room, chilling on their roster, but he can't even play because they don't know what's going to happen with his suspension. So now that he's finally known it's 8 games, it opens up the doors for teams to sign him. I will say this. When I first wrote up this segment that I wanted to do about Antonio Brown, this was a couple weeks ago, right? And I wrote here directly that he's going to get signed very, very soon. I even put down here that I think he's going to be signed in the next week or 2. I was completely wrong on that. For some reason, I thought that this is going to open the doors wide open and teams are going to start calling. But no teams have reached out yet. And that is shocking to me. And it tells me that teams are fed up with him. And for once, we're not seeing talent overtake, some bad flaws that Antonio Brown has. Usually, talent always overrides this. But we're not seeing that happen. Now, let me be very clear. I do think he will get signed by someone. I do think it will happen. I just don't think teams are in a rush right now. So most people think that Seattle and Baltimore are the top 2 teams to watch for, right? Those are the names that we keep hearing about. It's Seattle or it's Baltimore. And, it's a perfect fit. Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, Russell Wilson in Seattle. I don't actually think that this is the case. I think the Ravens want nothing to do with him. And this is just me going off a hunch that I have. I have no sources about this. This is just me putting some facts together. I think that they are trying to keep him at arm's length for a couple reasons. And what that means is I think they're kind of teasing the idea. We've heard their general manager come on and say, we look at all players, anyone that can help our team better. But they really haven't made any serious move. And it makes you wonder, so they know that their young star QB, superstar QB, likes him. Lamar Jackson likes him. He went to bat for him. He went in the press conference with the Baltimore media and said, I think we should sign Antonio Brown. He'll be great for our team. So they clearly don't want to do anything to piss off their superstar quarterback, Lamar Jackson. Also, another reason is Antonio Brown's cousin, Marquise Hollywood Brown, is on the team and is a wide receiver on the team. And he's young. He's going into his second year this year. He was a rookie last year. And I think that they don't want to upset Antonio Brown and not sign him and then have to worry about Brown going to talk to Hollywood Brown and kind of like put him against his own team or some nonsense like that. And look, I understand that sounds crazy. I really do. But there is no telling what Antonio Brown would do. I could fully see if the Ravens rejected Antonio Brown that he tried to turn his cousin against him. And his cousin, Hollywood Brown, is a young star in this league as well. So I think that they're trying to make sure that they keep their young receiver happy. I think they're trying to make sure they keep their young superstar quarterback happy. But I think that they're trying to hint at the idea but really say, we don't want to deal with this. We really don't. Now, I do think Seattle is a possibility. I think Pete Carroll enjoys bringing in guys like that. I think that he could use his whole kumbaya method that Pete Carroll loves to do to make Brown come together in the locker room like Pete Carroll has done many times. You know, he's such that, oh, it's okay, let's let's come together, peace, you know. I could see Pete Carroll feeling like he can try that. He can take a chance like that. But a team that I actually think is best suited for Brown is Philadelphia. It's the Eagles. They need wide receivers really bad. Doug Peterson has a good hold on that locker room. They have a lot of veterans. They have guys like Lane Johnson and Fletcher Cox who mean business. And they will get up in your face if you have a problem with their team. They will. Those are some mean men. Those are some big boys. And they'll tell Antonio Brown straight up, you better act straight. You better act right here. Otherwise, you're out. I think that the Eagles are a perfect locker room when it comes to Antonio Brown. I really do. Now, this is something to know. If Brown signed before the start of the 2020 season, he would be eligible to participate in his club's preseason activities, practice, all of that stuff. Brown's suspension would start to take place as a final roster reduction on September 5th, which is week 1. All right, so he would be eligible to then return to the team the 8th game in. So that could make it even more enticing for a team to bring him in ASAP because that could give them reps with Antonio Brown. Does that make sense? Like, if Philadelphia brought in Antonio Brown right now, they could have Carson Wentz working with Antonio Brown because Antonio Brown would actually be able to practice. And even more important, they could use that time to see how he acts. Has he changed? Is he going to fit in the locker room? How does he act on the field during practice? How does he act off the field when they head into the locker room? Is he going to lash out and cause drama? Look, we like to be honest on this show, so we're not going to stop now. We're going to keep being honest. Antonio Brown has shown that when he is out on the field, he's a game changer. Remember last week we talked about how Jamal Adams isn't that game changer that takes Seattle over the hump? Well, Antonio Brown is. Antonio Brown is that missing piece. But since we are being honest here, we also know that he can go normal to crazy in a matter of seconds. He has shown us that countless times. That is no joke. Whoever brings him in, and last week we were going to do this segment, like I said, but we ran out of time. But I told you guys I really thought someone was going to sign him right away, and clearly I was wrong on that. But I do still believe he will get signed. But as of recent, Adam Schefter reported that not many teams or no teams have called about him yet because teams are clearly worried, and rightfully so. But that's why I named teams like Seattle and Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll, Philadelphia and Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz and lots of veterans. It's got to be a team that can hold him accountable. I also think the Green Bay Packers would be a very, very interesting fit here for Antonio Brown. because they need talent. We've talked about this many times. They have let Rodgers down. They don't have talent. So I think Antonio Brown would be an absolute perfect fit for the Green Bay Packers if it wasn't for their GM, Brian Kuntekinst. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I have no idea. But if it wasn't for him making the decisions, because I haven't seen him make a decision that can actually help the team since he's taken the job. No, that sounds harsh, but it's just the truth. So unless he wakes up one morning and has an epiphany, and I don't see that changing, but I don't think they'll take a chance at Antonio Brown then. He would be a perfect fit, though. They have Aaron Rodgers. They have Devontae Adams. They have Aaron Jones. They have a veteran offensive line. But they do have a rookie, a young head coach. And that could be one problem in all of this. I don't know if Matt LaFleur would be able to handle all that yet. I don't know if you'd be able to keep Antonio Brown in check. That's why I said guys like Doug Peterson, Pete Carroll, and John Harbaugh. Look, the Ravens would be perfect for Antonio Brown too. I'm just saying, based on what I've seen, it doesn't feel like the Ravens are going to take that chance on him. You know, it would be perfect, though, because I don't know if you guys noticed this, but last year, the Ravens had the least yards receiving out of all the teams. So all the teams combined in the NFL, and I'm talking about you put all their receivers together, they had a total of like 1,600 yards combined by all their receivers. And they still went 14-2 somehow, which is incredible. So they need receiving yards. To put that into perspective a little bit, Julio Jones had 1,400 yards himself. So he was 200 yards off beating the entire Ravens roster of wide receivers in yards. So they clearly need help when it comes to wide receiver. But it just feels different with them. It feels like they don't want to make that jump. They have two of their biggest young players, their cornerstone pieces, advocating to bring in this player, to bring in Antonio Brown. We've all seen the videos of Lamar Jackson working with Antonio Brown offseason. Lamar, Hollywood Brown, and Antonio Brown. But the Ravens still don't want to do it. You know, and doesn't that make you have to think, maybe they just are trying to keep the idea fresh so that they don't piss off their young players, and then they'll end up hoping that another team signs him, and it's just like, snap, we didn't get the chance. Sorry about that. That's kind of what I think this is. But we'll see. If I had to make a prediction, which sometimes, I like to do, I like to put my name out there. Walk on the edge, walk on the plank, baby. Let's see if I can get it right. I think that it's going to be Seattle. I think when it's all said and done, Seattle is going to be the team that goes and signs Antonio Brown. I think that they think Russell Wilson, who's very, very mature, Pete Carroll, who's been doing this for a long time, John Snyder, a GM that's been doing it for a long time, I think that they believe they can hone all those players together and keep Antonio Brown in check. I fully do. The one other thing about this is, with this year being so crazy with the coronavirus, a lot of people are going to, hopefully not, but most likely players are going to get sick, which means it's all about the depth of the team, what you have on the depth of the team. That could be another reason why Antonio Brown will get signed sooner than later. That's another reason why I thought he would already have been signed by now or very soon, but it still looks like he hasn't, and he's not going to be. But eventually, before the season starts or a couple weeks into the season, when some players start to go down, I think that Antonio Brown will start to get those calls. And let's be very clear. Antonio Brown has to make sure that he adapts here too. He has to make sure that he's willing to change as well, because I can guarantee this, if he screws up this next situation that he gets, I don't know how much his phone is going to be ringing after that. It might be done from there. So this is a big, big moment for him too, whenever that moment comes. And again, I believe it will at some point this season. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We are going to take a quick break. We're going into halftime. And when we come out of halftime, the division tour lives on, baby. AFC East. Oh, excuse me. Messed up there. AFC West. Where you at? We've already picked AFC East. The AFC West. The home of the defending Super Bowl champions. Is it their time to repeat? Can anyone stop them? Can another team come out of this division and make the playoffs at least? Make that wild card spot? Or can there be two teams that could even make the playoffs in that wild card spot? Stay tuned. Right after this, we'll discuss it.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
This is the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network, coming out of halftime with the strong lead. Hope everyone's having a wonderful day on their end. It's a beautiful Saturday here as I record this show, coming out Sunday morning as always, so get it right, nice and hot. You go downstairs, you get yourself that cup of coffee, that real good cup of coffee. I don't know how you guys like your coffee, but I like it black. I'm all black kind of. No milk, nothing, just straight black coffee. It's actually funny because I used to hate coffee. Like wanted nothing to do with coffee when I was younger. Really up until about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, I started to drink coffee. And when I first started to drink coffee, I would go out and I would get those like sweetened milk things. Like, gosh, what are they called? But they're like flavored, you could get like the caramel flavor, or now they even have like Reese's flavor and cookies and cream flavor. I mean, they have everything. And I used to love to go out and I would be like, oh man, I'm going to get one of these like really cool looking ones. And I would put it in there and it would be so good, like so good. But then I started to get a little bit more sophisticated, and not saying that you guys you and girls out there that drink your coffee that way, you're not sophisticated, but I started to really like enjoy the taste of coffee. And I would say, my parents have a lot to do with that. They drink coffee. My girlfriend drinks coffee, so I started to get more accustomed to it. And now I'm just like, I don't like milk in it. I don't want sugar in it. Like, I just want my coffee black. That's it. And I'm also become a little coffee connoisseur. I even got this little grinder the other day where I can like buy the beans and then I can grind the coffee beans. And then I also got a French press, which is really, really cool. For anybody that likes the taste of just like strong coffee, go out and get you one of those French presses. They're only like $20 on Amazon. It takes like 5 minutes to make a good cup of coffee, and it is bomb. I mean, it is bomb, but it is strong. So, because I'm someone that doesn't like to have a lot of coffee. I just want like 1 cup. Maybe I'll have another cup in the afternoon if I'm really tired, but I have 1 cup in the morning, and then usually I'll be good from there. So I don't do like those 3-4 cups a day. 2 max I'll do. And so that's why, if I'm only going to do 1 or 2 cups, might as well want them to be strong. So anyways, thank you everyone for listening to the show. We heading out of halftime, going into quarter number 3. You remember we just broke down a couple things. We talked about Antonio Brown, and he's got the 8-game suspension now. What's going to happen from here? Who's going to sign him? I gave you guys the teams that are most likely to. It's the Seattle. That's my prediction. I think he's going to end up on Seattle. But I would not be surprised if the Ravens took him. I would not be surprised if Philadelphia took him. I would be surprised, even though they need to take him, if Green Bay took him. Because once again, their GM just doesn't like to make picks that can possibly help the team for some reason. Maybe if Antonio Brown was going to play in like 4 years to help their future, he would take him. But I just don't see that happening now. But Aaron Rodgers, that would be one dirty combination with him, Antonio Brown, and Devontae Adams. So look out for that. We'll get hints as we go. We are coming down the stretch. This was supposed to be week 1 of the preseason. So we're about 4 weeks away from opening night. Little less than 4 weeks, actually. So Thursday of this past week would have been 4 weeks away from opening night. That's wild, guys. That is wild. Man, I cannot wait. Let's go. So we'll tune into that. But again, my pick is Seattle is going to be the team that ends up bringing them in. And like I said, Jamal Adams was not the difference maker that they needed. Antonio Brown is. If they can keep Antonio Brown on the straight and narrow, this team would officially become a Super Bowl contender. No doubt about it. If they go out and sign them, of course. So it's time to keep the division tour goes on. The great Kayvon division tour. I mean, it's becoming famous all around the world here. You see it everywhere. You see it on billboards. Kayvon's division tour. And last show we did the NFC South, right? And then I don't know if some of you saw this, but Brady spoke to the media for the first time in a while the other day at training camp. And man, like I said, I don't know if you guys saw this, but this man is focused. I mean, that man looks like he is on a mission. You can tell he is all business and nothing else. LaShawn McCoy, this was funny, who the Bucs just recently signed. He was there at training camp as well, and he said that he overheard some teammates talking amongst each other, just like in awe of Brady, just like some young players saying like that, wow, how long do you think he's going to play? Look at him, just watching it all. Can you believe that? I mean, think about this. Some of these young players on the team, they grew up watching this man play. And now they're actually playing with him. That's pretty remarkable to think about. So I think the Bucs are going to have a great season. I told you guys that last episode. Matt Ryan, the great Matt Ryan, talked to the media as well. He talked about Todd Gurley and how good Todd Gurley looks, how smart Todd Gurley is, how quick he's picked up on the playbook. I mean, guys, I was juiced up yesterday when I heard Matt Ryan talking about Todd Gurley. I was ready to run through a wall. I was hyped. I felt like it was 12:50 on a Sunday afternoon and we're 10 minutes away from kickoff. I mean, I was like, woo. I hope this is how Todd Gurley's about to be with the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, just the way he was talking about Gurley was just amazing. It was amazing. So those are my teams in the NFC South. I said I think the Bucs are going to win it, and I think the Falcons are going to be right there with them, and they'll end up getting that playoff spot. That's what I said last week. Now let's get into this week, the AFC West. What's going to happen? You know how we always do it, right? Come on, you guys know it. Let me hear it. What is it? It's the predictions within the predictions. Let's go. All right, best coach. It's Andy Reid. There's no doubt about it. Look, Andy Reid, when he was with Philadelphia, he was phenomenal. Got to the AFC, got to the Super Bowl once, got to the NFC Championship game another time. It just wasn't able to get over the hump, but always had a winning record, really. Did a lot of great things. Then he went to Kansas City. He took Alex Smith as quarterback, and they went to the playoffs almost every year. Now he has Mahomes. I mean, Andy Reid is just an offensive genius. You see his wisdom and his talent spread all throughout the league in head coaches like Doug Peterson and all these other coaches around there. Andy Reid is a phenomenal head coach. I am so happy for him that he has now finally got over the hump and won the Super Bowl. There are some other good coaches in this division. I like Anthony Lynn. I like John Gruden a lot. Vic Fangio is a really good defensive mind. I don't know how he's going to for sure be as a head coach yet. That's still out to see. But there's no doubt about that this is Andy Reid's division. He wears the crown. He's the best coach in the division. Best QB, I mean, come on, guys. It's Patrick Mahomes. Do we really? The guy just got a $500 million contract, 10-year, $500 million contract this offseason. Is there any debate here? Patrick Mahomes is not just the best quarterback in the AFC West. He's the best quarterback in the entire NFL, and that will be the case for as long as he plays when it comes to being the crown of the AFC West. No one's taken that spot for a long, long time. Best running back. Let's switch it up from the Chiefs for a second. Josh Jacobs. Look, I love me some Melvin Gordon. I really do. And if he didn't have the off year that he had last year, he would for sure be my pick. And don't even tell me it's Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler's a great switch up back. He's a fantastic catching the football. And he can even run between the tackles at times, but he's not the number one guy. I think the Chargers made a mistake letting Gordon go. And I think that they're going to regret that, especially because he went to their division rival in the Broncos. The best running back in this division is Josh Jacobs. I know he's only been in the league 1 year, but he has done enough to prove to me that he is a workhorse back. He can catch it. He can run it. He can handle a lot of carries every single season. He is going to be a long time to come a running back for the Raiders. He's going to be a force to reckon with. He wears the crown for best running back in the division. Best wide receiver, it's Tyreek Hill. Now, this is a stacked receiver division. You've got Keenan Allen. You've got Mike Williams. You've got Tyreek Hill. All right. You've got Jerry Jeudy coming in from Alabama. You've got Henry Ruggs coming in from Alabama. You've got Cortland Sutton, who's on the Broncos. There's a lot of good receivers. You got Sammy Watkins. But Tyreek Hill is the speedster. He's the fastest guy in the NFL. He is the most dangerous threat out there because you cannot cover speed. Tyreek Hill wears the crown. Best tight end, Travis Kelce. I know this is a repetitive. It's a bunch of Chiefs players. And again, a lot of good tight ends in this division. This is probably the best tight end division in the NFL. You've got Darren Waller, who's a freaking basketball player out there. He's so big. You've got Hunter Henry, who's just been getting better and better each year of his young career. And then you've got Travis Kelce, who's the best tight end in the entire NFL. He does it all. He run blocks. He catches balls. He catches touchdowns. He's a leader in the locker room. He has a fun personality. Travis Kelce wears the crown. Best offense, I think we all know it's the Kansas City Chiefs. Just based off all the picks that I've made here, we don't need to go into it more. This offense is scary. They just drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which just makes it even more scary. There's nothing to say more about that. Best defense, Los Angeles Chargers. The Los Angeles Chargers have the best defense in this division. When you have guys like Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa rushing the quarterback, when you have guys like Derwin James in safety, Chris Harris Jr. at quarterback, this defense is stacked with talent across the board, and they should be a very, very good defense this 2020 season. Those are the predictions within the predictions. Now let's get into the real predictions. Denver Broncos head coach Vic Fangio, 2019 record 7-9. Look, Denver ended their 2019 season on a really good note, and that gave this team and their fan base and their organization a lot of confidence going into this offseason. And you can tell that by the way they went about their offseason. More on that in just a little bit. It's funny, though. Do you guys remember how they started the season? The Broncos started the season awful. I mean, they started 0-4. They had Joe Flacco as their starter, which was a whole nother issue in itself. But anyways, they end up going 3-8 by week 13. They are 3-8, and they have Joe Flacco and Brandon Allen. Everyone is looking at John Elway once again like this guy cannot find a starting QB to save his life. Well, they decided to then bring in their rookie second-round draft pick, Drew Lock. A lot of people thought Lock was going to be a first-round talent coming out of Missouri. He showed he had all the mechanics, the arm talent, but the success on the field at Missouri was just not there. And that mainly wasn't even his fault, in my opinion, that he had a lot of coaches change. Just Missouri, it was tough for him, but he showed the talent. Well, he ended up going in the second round where the Broncos took him, and I personally was not very high on Locke, and I still think he has a lot to prove, but he ended the season looking good. He ended the season on a very positive note and looking like he can be a legit QB in the league. So he comes in week 13. They go 4-1 to end the season, and in the season 7-9 overall. Now, granted, he did beat up on some bad teams. He beat the Chargers, the Lions, and the Raiders, but he also beat Houston, which is a really good win. So they go 4-1 down the stretch, and a lot of confidence begins pumping into this team. And again, you can tell that by the way they went about things this offseason. In free agency, they go out and add Melvin Gordon to their backfield, who I really, really like. So they have Gordon as their runner, and then they also have Phillip Lindsay in the backfield who can catch the ball out of the backfield and run between the tackles. So they have a really good running back core now. In free agency, they add Melvin Gordon, as we mentioned. They signed Graham Glasgow to a big 4-year deal, who's one of the really good guards in this league to protect their young quarterback, their young franchise guy in Drew Lock. They trade for A.J. Boye, who's a good quarterback. They signed Jarrell Casey on the defensive line. They franchise tag Justin Simmons, who's one of the best safeties in the league. It's pretty obvious what Denver is doing here, okay? What Denver is trying to do, and you'll see this trend as we talk about everyone else in the AFC West, they're trying to find a way to match Kansas City. There are two ways to attack Kansas City. You either build a phenomenal defense and try and slow them down like the 49ers did in the Super Bowl for the first 3 quarters, or you build a fast-paced offense and try to outscore them. Both are a very hard task. Both are a very, very hard task. Denver is taking the latter. Denver's taking the second part. Denver is trying to build that speed that Kansas City has. That's why they went out and drafted Jerry Jeudy from Alabama, who I believe is going to be a very, very good wide receiver in this league. His route running skills are phenomenal. And then in the second round, they draft wide receiver KJ Hamler out of Penn State, who is a speedster Swiss Army knife type player that kind of resembles that Tyreek Hill status of being very fast and can also catch the ball over the middle, all that stuff. So John Elway is clearly trying to build something through the offense, which he has not done in a long, long time. Remember, he did that with Peyton Manning, but then towards the end of Manning's career, he had to go to the defensive side to carry Manning towards the end, and it ended up working out. Look, Vegas has the win total for the Broncos at 7.5 wins. A lot of money has been coming in on the over here. People think the Broncos can be that surprise team of the year. Like I said, I really do like a lot of the pieces that I'm seeing here, but it still comes down to the development of Drew Lock and head coach Vic Fangio putting his stamp on this defense. I think that the Broncos will be a good team, but giving them a 500 or winning record is a little premature to me. I think 7 wins is about right. I am locking in the under on this one, under 7.5 for the Broncos. Now, let's go to the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers last year were the surprise team of the year, but not in a good way. After going 12-4 the previous season and beating the Ravens in the playoffs, many thought this team would be right there with the Chiefs next year, fighting for that division once again. That just wasn't the case. And it wasn't due to the lack of talent, because boy does this team have some talent on both sides of the ball. It was mainly due to the regression of Phillip Rivers, who threw a lot of interceptions and did not just play well. So, and to be fair, it wasn't all on him. You know, they did lose star safety Derwin James. Melvin Gordon set out the first 4 games trying to get a new contract. A lot was going on with this team. But this team has so much talent. They have so much talent, which equals high expectations. And many people still do have those expectations. So they get rid of Phillip Rivers this offseason, who has been their franchise guy for the last whatever so years, long time. And if you all remember this entire offseason, we were trying to pick up quarterbacks and place them on this team because of the talent they have. You know, we were saying, hey, I mean, on offense, you have wide receiver Keenan Allen, who consistently goes over 1,000 yards receiving every year. You have Mike Williams, who I think these last 2 years has really come into his own and is showing why he deserved to go number 7 overall in that draft. He also went for 1,000 yards last season. You have one of the best tight ends in the league in Hunter Henry. And then you have a really good running back in Austin Eckler. And then to round out the offense, you sign a very good tackle in Brian Bulaga over from the Green Bay Packers, who's a very good talent. So the offensive pieces are clearly there. On defense, they have two really good edge rushers in Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa. Bosa just got paid the big bucks too, and well-deserved in my eyes. Those two wreak havoc around the corner, around the edge, every single game. They go out and sign Chris Harris Jr., who's not just a really good cornerback, but they also sign him away from their division rival, the Denver Broncos, which is a win-win all the time. And then you also have Derwin James, who I noted earlier, who is seriously one of the best safeties in the league already, and he's only going into year 3. So this is the one thing, this is the team that I really wanted to go after Cam Newton because of all those pieces I just named. I think Cam Newton would have been perfect for this team. But they didn't want to go that route. Instead, they went a different route, which is when things start to come into questions. These are when you start to have the questions about this team. They have Tyrod Taylor at quarterback, who's a very good, steady quarterback in this league. Look, Tyrod is one of those QBs who isn't really appreciated because he doesn't jump off the table. Like, he doesn't do anything really, really good, but he also doesn't do anything bad. He's just like a good quarterback. He's a steady quarterback. He isn't going to lose you guys games, but he isn't also necessarily going to go out and win you very many games. But they really like him. For some reason, that organization really, really likes him. And I shouldn't say for some reason, because again, he is a good quarterback. And he took the Bills to the playoffs with not that much talent around him. He has shown that he can win in this league. So what they decided to do is they decided to keep him as the starter and then draft Justin Herbert out of Oregon, who I really, really like. So now they have their future quarterback in Justin Herbert, and then they believe they have their starter now to win games in Tyrod. Sounds like a perfect recipe, right? I mean, that's every team's dream, to have a quarterback now to win games, and then a quarterback in the future that's already out there, can learn from your starting quarterback, and then will be able to come in later on in the future. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to work that way. I do believe they have the quarterback of the future in Herbert. I do believe that. I really like Herbert. I don't know if Tyrod Taylor can get them to the point that they think they can go this year. Again, I do really like Tyrod. He does not get enough credit for what he's done in this league and what he is as a quarterback in this league, which is a really good quarterback, a good mentor, a good locker room guy. But the AFC is really, really tough this year. And yes, they have talent all around them, but the biggest and most impactful position is quarterback. And Vegas has them at 7.5 wins. And because of that, I am going to have to lock that under in. I think they win 6 or 7 games, but I can't go any more than that. Put it in the envelope, seal it up, hammer it down, lock in the under on 7.5. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. We are done with quarter number 3, baby. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to break down the Las Vegas Raiders, the Kansas City Chiefs, and then we're going to give you guys the best number 2 receivers in the league. And stay tuned for this one. We'll be right back after this.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Quarter number four, throw up the four fingers, baby. We are entering quarter number 4. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I hope you're enjoying the show so far today, because I know we really are. We've been getting right into it. Bam, bam, bam. Topic after topic after topic. Spitting the facts. Talking the content. So excited. Less than a month away till opening night. The Houston Texans go down to Kansas City. Man, guys, imagine if that... imagine what that crowd would be like if we could have some serious fans in there. It sucks. Coronavirus sucks. It really does. Now, in all, that's just a small portion of how bad it sucks, because there's much bigger things out there like people dying, and I understand that. So I don't want to sound bad when I'm saying, like, you know, putting so much emphasis on how crappy that is, because there's way worse things happening. But you know, Kansas City's known for their fans, and they finally win their first Super Bowl in 50 years or whatever. That would have been wild. It's going to be so interesting, guys, to see what teams are able to have fans based on, you know, their government level and all that. And remember, the NFL said if your government allows you to have fans, and obviously they're going to be in a social distance manner, like no team is going to have the amount of fans that you can fit in their stadium. The most you're going to see any team have is going to be 20,000, if that. And those will be 20,000 for stadiums that hold like 80,000 people, so it will be completely social distance. And the NFL already said that all of the first rows will be tarped off so that no fans can come in contact with the player. And then they also said that everyone has to wear a mask. They don't care what state you're playing in and what your governor or mayor in that state says about masks. You will be wearing a mask if you go to an NFL game. And I love that the NFL has done that. They've taken that in their own hands so they don't have to deal with, I don't even want to get into it, but with people that clearly are out of line thinking that you don't have to wear a mask. And that's all I'll say about that. Now, so I can't wait to see that dynamic and how does that affect teams and how does that not affect teams with games with fans, without fans, all that stuff. All right, now we were just into the Kayvon division tour with the AFC West. We already went through the Denver Broncos. Vegas has them at 7.5. Like I said, a lot of money is coming in on the over on that. A lot of teams believe that he is the surprise team, that the Broncos are the surprise team of the year. I am taking the under. I think that they are set up for a very good future, but I still need to see the development of Drew Lock. And I still need to see how good of a coach Vic Fangio is. I know he's a great defensive coach. How is he as a head coach? That's a big difference. So I'm taking the under on that one. And then the Los Angeles Chargers are at 7.5 as well on the wings. I'm taking the under on that. Look, they have some of the best talent in the league over everyone else. I mean, they are one of the teams up there with a stacked roster. But the quarterback play is so important. And I think Tyrod Taylor can go out there and win them 6, 7, maybe even 8 games. Maybe I'll be wrong and they'll go to 8, but that's all I can see. They're in a really good division. It's to beat Kansas City, not only do you have to have firepower on offense, but you have to have a quarterback that can just hash it out with Patrick Mahomes, just like Deshaun Watson did last year, just like Brady did in years past. That's what you have to have. And while I really love Tyrod Taylor, and while he's going to be a huge support for Justin Herbert learning how to get along in the NFL and go about your day-to-day business, he's not going to be able to get them to the playoffs, to that 8, 9, 10 win season that they're looking for. So I went under on the 7.5 there. And now the Las Vegas Raiders. Head coach John Gruden, 2019 record 7-9. The Las Vegas Raiders, this is a super crucial year for the Raiders in so many different ways, and in particular one way, which we'll get to in a second. Look, it's no secret that I like the moves the Raiders have made in the recent 2 years. We have gone through this. It's no secret that I'm a John Gruden fan. I really like John Gruden. I think he can get the job done. I really do. And they are really turning things into a positive direction for their future. You know, when John Gruden first got this job, he made a couple of moves that had people freaking out. You remember that? He went out and traded Khalil Mack, one of the best defenders in the entire game, to Chicago, but he got 2 first-round picks back for it. He then also traded wide receiver Amari Cooper to the Dallas Cowboys, where he got 1 first-round pick for it. He wanted to pick his own players. He wanted to start his own team. Well, all of those draft picks that they got from those good players, they're all in. They've already made all those picks, and I honestly think they've hit on pretty much all of them. And that's what you have to do when you trade big players like that. That's what the Jets have to do with those picks since they just traded Jamal Adams. And that's what the Raiders did. You know, they used one of those draft picks to go out and get running back Josh Jacobs, who I already told you I think is the best running back in this division, who's an absolute stud and is one of those workhorse backs that can handle a numerous amount of carries every single year. They also used one on safety Jonathan Abrams, who got hurt last year, but before he got hurt, he was showing the hard-hitting safety, the aggressive safety that they brought him in to be. And then this year they drafted a receiver in Henry Ruggs out of Alabama that literally embodies the most Raider receiver ever. I mean, the late, great Al Davis was for sure smiling down on this team when they drafted Ruggs. Al Davis would have done anything to make sure that man is on his team. He embodies what the Raiders love in a fast wide receiver. And then they also brought in some really good pieces in free agency. Look, all of this is great for the team's future, but for 2020, it's going to all fall on the shoulders of one Mr. Derek Carr. The pieces are in place. The pieces are in place, and it's time to start winning, especially now that they are in Las Vegas. People are expecting big things when you go to Las Vegas, when you build a giant stadium right off the strip of Vegas. They need to win, and they need to win early so the city galvanizes around them like they did for the Las Vegas Knights when the hockey team first came in. And they went all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals in their first year. And now the team loves them. They sell out every game. But it all comes down to Mr. Derek Carr this season. See, this is the thing with Carr. He has shown us he can do it. He has shown us that he can be an MVP candidate in this league. So yes, the jury is still out on him. But it's not like they are waiting, to see that spark, to see if he really can perform at the highest level. No, he's already shown that he can. It's just time to get back there now. And we all know that he broke his leg, and that clearly has hurt him a bit, especially mentally. I know Carr doesn't like hearing this, but I think that it's in his head a bit, and he isn't as comfortable in the pocket ever since he broke that leg. And look, Carr even came out recently and said, I'm tired of getting disrespected. Well, Carr, it's time to show up. It's time to show the quarterback that you can be. The Raiders have backed you 1,000% of the way. They could have used a number of those draft picks to take a QB, but they didn't. This offseason, they could have signed Cam Newton, but they didn't. Instead, they bring in Marcus Mariota, who is a really good locker room guy, someone that is going to allow it to still be your team. He's not going to take over the team. So it's time to step up now. The organization has put all the faith in your hands. They've given you the keys to the organization. They've given you the weapons. It's time to take this team back to the playoffs. And guess what? I believe he will. I believe he will. Vegas has the Raiders at 6.5. They won 7 games last year. At one point, they were 6-4. They were looking really good. I think that John Gruden's going to have this team ready to go. I think that they're going to be pumped up to be in Vegas. And I think that this team is going over 6.5 wins, and they're going to make the playoffs as well. They're going to come out as a wild card team in the AFC West, and they're going to make the playoffs for the first time since John Gruden's second tenure here in Oakland. Derek Carr is going to show that he knows he can play quarterback at this position. Henry Ruggs is going to show the speedster that he is. And I am locking in, sealing it up, throwing it at the window, and saying cash this baby in because this is a lock over 6.5. Now, to the Kansas City Chiefs. Head coach Andy Reid, 2019 record 12-4. Look, let's be serious here. This is going to be short and sweet, guys. What can you say? They just re-signed their best quarterback in the entire NFL to a 10-year, $500 million contract. They bring back Chris Jones, who's a sack machine, their leading sacker on the team, wreaks havoc in the middle. They bring back Tyrann Mathieu. They bring back Sammy Watkins. They draft Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Yes, Damian Williams decides to opt out, but they just draft Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It really doesn't matter. He's a great player, Damian Williams, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire will fit in just fine. They still have Tyreek Hill. They're bringing back 22 of the 23 Super Bowl starters. They're bringing back the entire coaching staff, which is so rare. You never see a team, let alone make it to the Super Bowl or even win the Super Bowl and not lose a coach. I mean, shoot, the Falcons make it to the Super Bowl for the first time since like 1999, and they lose their offensive coach right away in Kyle Shanahan. The Chiefs win it, and their genius offensive coach, other than Andy Reid, doesn't get a job, Eric Bieniemy. So, and there's other reasons to that. I know we can go through that another day, but he didn't get a job. So, I mean, they have everyone back. There's nothing that can stop this team other than injuries, and we never wish injuries on anyone. But even when Mahomes went out a couple games last year, they showed that they can still hold afloat and stay afloat and win some games without him. This team is too good. Vegas has them at 11.5, and I know that's high, but I will hammer that over all day. This team is winning 12 or 13 games again. They just simply are. Lock, 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 hammer, 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 over on the 11.5 for the Kansas City Chiefs, who will be my AFC West prediction, probably the easiest one yet. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. Want to thank everyone for listening today. Unfortunately, we were not able to get into the person that came out and said they're going to break Michael Strahan's sack record. We will do that next show, so stay tuned for that. That will be a nice little 4-day tease for you guys to hang your hat on and see who I could be talking about, even though you could just go to the internet and find it. But I'm going to try and act like you guys are not going to do that, and you're going to wait for me to break it down for you. But we're going to end the show with the only way we know how to, and that's getting a dub. That's throwing out a great segment, coming up with some good content, and looking at the best number 2 wide receivers in the NFL. So why is this topic coming up? Well, my guy, Calvin Ridley, that's right, my guy, Calvin Ridley, recently came out and said that he is now the number 2 on his team. He said that the last couple years, Mohamed Sanu has been there, and he felt like, he was kind of like the number 2, number 3, splitting with Mohamed Sanu, and now it's Julio Jones number 1 and him number 2. And he said that he's ready to come out and show the world that he can be the best number 2 in the NFL, that he can even be good enough as a number 1, that he can have 1,000 yards receiving, and I fully believe him. And that made me think, well, what other number 2s are out there? How many good number 2s are there in this league? So I thought, this could be interesting. Let's break it down. Let's talk about the best number 2 receivers in the NFL. Now, this is interesting first because you have to think this. You have to have an idea of what a number 2 is, first of all, right? Like who the number 2 receivers are, which creates some opportunities for challenge. For instance, the Los Angeles Rams. They have Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, and they used to have Brandon Cooks too, but not anymore. He was traded to Houston. So they have Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. Who's the number 1 there? Who's the number 2? I would really argue that both of them are the number 2. Both are great receivers, but neither are actual number 1, right? So, in the realm of the NFL, that is the interesting part of this. There are definitely some other situations out there too, so you kind of have to get tricky with it and make sure you identify your number 1 first, and then say, okay, where's your number 2? So, let's get into it. My first number 2 receiver is Jarvis Landry. And I think that he is arguably the actual best number 2 receiver in the game. He's such a good number 2. He's perfect for the number 2. And honestly, like I said, if he wasn't on this team, this Browns team, he would be the number 1. But because he's there with Odell Beckham Jr., who's clearly the number one, Jarvis is the number two. Because Odell Beckham's the number one, because he garners the most attention, he's the superstar. But I mean, Jarvis Landry, come on. I mean, he does everything. You know, he can run the football through the speed sweeps. He can catch screens. He can break tackles. He can make people miss. You know, and then within the number two receiver, usually when you're thinking about the number two receiver, you think of the slot. You know, you can work the middle, do all of those things. Yes, he can do all of those, but he also can go deep. He also can line up outside when he wants to, and he's very dangerous out there too. So as far as that's concerned, I think that Jarvis Landry is one of the best number twos in this sport. Last year, he caught 83 passes, 1,174 yards, and 6 touchdowns. That is a really good stat line for a number two. Catches a lot of passes, knows what he's doing. The next one I'm going with, Sammy Watkins. I think Sammy Watkins is a perfect number two. I think he was overdrafted coming out of college. He was a great receiver at Clemson. I think the Bills overdrafted him. You remember, trivia question, he was drafted before who? Odell Beckham Jr. He was drafted before Odell Beckham Jr. When he was picked in 2014 by the Buffalo Bills. But, you know, he tried it a couple years there as their number one. It didn't work out. He went traded to the Rams where he had one good season. You know, he caught 8 touchdowns that year, which is awesome. And then he went to the Chiefs where he's really found his number two spot. He works perfect with Tyreek Hill because Tyreek Hill is such a good number one receiver that it takes some pressure off of Watkins. Watkins has had 2 huge catches in the Super Bowl last year that arguably won them the game and helped win them the game. Sammy Watkins is a perfect number two to me. My next number two, Mike Williams with the Los Angeles Chargers. Guys, I love Mike Williams. And honestly, you know, he has a huge body. He can make some plays after the catch. I mean, he's one of the best 50-50 high-point receivers in all of football. When you talk about big plays, you talk about him. They have a number one, Keenan Allen, who's not a big play guy. You know, he's going to work the intermediate routes. He's going to get you a lot of 5 and 8 and 10-yard catches. But Williams is going to get you the big plays. He's going to give you the deep ball. He's going to give you the long touchdown. He's going to give you the Hail Mary. I think you really could even argue that Williams is being close to a number one. He's getting there. Every year he's getting better. You have to look at the film on this, guys. Who gets the double team? Whoever gets the double team is the number one. Williams garners some double teams a good amount. Last year he goes for 1,000 yards. The year before that he goes for 10 touchdowns in a season. Whew! All right, my next number two, and he is clearly a number two, even though we don't know who the number one is on the team. And that's Juju Smith-Schuster. He is the consummate number two in this league. He is the ideal number two receiver in the National Football League. The problem is last year they tried to make him the number one and it didn't work, confirming that he is perfect number two for this as a receiver. Now, they just have to go out and find a number one who will command the double coverage and stretch the field and let Juju Smith-Schuster be that kind of player that Jarvis Landry is for the Browns and that Juju was when Antonio Brown was there. Be that reliable target who catches everything but doesn't take the top off the defense. He was the MVP of the team in 2018 for a reason. Of course, one of the reasons was that Antonio Brown was taking all the attention away from him. That's one of the reasons why Antonio stormed out Week 17 once he found out that the team picked Juju as the MVP and not him. You guys remember that? So give me Mr. Schuster all day. All day. I think he is a phenomenal number two receiver. He's just not that number one, and the Steelers need to go out and find that number one first. The next one I have is Chris Godwin for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. When you're one of, the arguably best slot receivers in football with good size and a big part of the offense, and then you have Mike Evans next to you, who's the main guy who garners the most attention, you're going to be the number two. Now, I do think that this year with Brady, there's a good chance that Godwin has a bigger role than Mike Evans because Brady's influence and those New England type plays that Edelman got all those years, Chris Godwin is going to be that type of player. He's going to be the Edelman for Brady. And so he might actually have a better year than Mike Evans, but Mike Evans is still the number one. He's still the best receiver on that team, and Chris Godwin is really coming into his own. Last year he goes for 1,333 yards, 9 touchdowns, looking like the beast that he really is. And Brady's going to have a lot of fun with those two. And my last number 2 is the man that started this conversation, and that's Calvin Ridley. Look, he's been in the league for 2 years. First year, 64 catches, 821 yards, 10 touchdowns. Next year, 63 catches, 866 yards, 7 touchdowns, and he didn't play the last couple games because he was injured. Calvin Ridley is a clear number 2 behind Julio Jones. He's one of the best route runners in the league, and he's only 2 years in. He has the hands. He has the speed. He's going to be able to catch and run with the ball. He's going to be able to make that 5, 10, 15, 20-yard catch, but you also can hit him deep as well. He's got it all. He will eventually be a number 1 receiver in the league. He will eventually take over that spot that Julio's in. But right now, when Julio garners those double teams, those triple teams at time, that lets Calvin Ridley do his thing. And I think we're going to see a monster year for Calvin Ridley this year. That's my number 2s. That's my Robins of the to their Batmans in the NFL when it comes to being the number 2 receiver. This is the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. We've been getting a couple lately. Go check them out on Apple Podcasts. They are funny. Got a couple people talking trash to me, but also spitting some love. And I really, really appreciate that. I totally do. You guys have been awesome. Also, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you and have a great night. We will see you back in a couple of days. Get ready. Pull the jersey out. Wash it. Bleach it. Whatever you got to do because football season is right around the corner. We'll see you next week.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.